We certainly did. At our house, there was a lot of present opening, consuming sugary carbohydrates, and lying around. We actually explored our new toys and books and things, but it was a really great day. You know, I notice more and more that experiencing holidays with my children causes me to reflect on the Christmases of my own childhood and the traditions and habits that made those occasions so special. And we replicate some of those with our own kids. But one thing that we don't do, or I should say at least haven't done yet, is something that I always did as a child at any gift-giving occasion, including Christmas, birthdays, etc. At the end of the day, or sometimes if we were really lucky, the next morning, my mother would have us sit down at the dining room table and write thank you notes. Now, I have to say, I realize I'm really showing my hand here by admitting this is not something that we do at this point in our family. It's been a long few years, pandemic, etc., been a little busy. And I know this is a very passionate issue for many people. I don't know where you all are on the spectrum of thank you note prioritizations, and you don't have to reveal that to me right now, but my mother was somewhat of a zealot about thank you notes, as was her mother before her, and also my paternal grandmother. And so there was really no getting away from this, right? They believed, and they communicated to us, that this was the only way, God's way, so to speak, that you had 1 week to produce a written thank you note in response to any present that you will receive. And no, in case you were wondering, a verbal communication would not suffice. You could say, thanks, Grandma, when you saw her at Christmas dinner, but you better believe that you would also be writing her a note that night. Now, no word, I was thinking about this as I was writing this, no word ever came from on high about whether email or text would kind of fit the bill for this. Both my grandmothers passed sort of before those technologies became ubiquitous, but I have to say, I imagine it probably would have been a hard no. Now, we knew that if you did not do it, if you did not send a handwritten thank you, that great offense would be taken, right? To the extent that perhaps no presents would be forthcoming ever again. Or so we were led to believe. And so we would sit down at the end of every holiday, every birthday, and take out a pile of blank cards and our pen, and then just kind of sit there and try to express our thanks. You know, it's funny, thinking about it, I have more visceral memories of writing thank you notes than I do of receiving the gifts for which they were written. Like, I can remember as if it were yesterday, sitting at the table in that sort of bored, sort of low-level distress. Now, because it's been kind of, because I found this exercise a little bit uncomfortable. First, because who wants to be writing thank you notes on the heels of a hedonistic occasion like a 7th birthday party? You just had all the cake, you just had all the fun, and now you're doing this task. I mean, it really takes the wind out of your sails. Second, because gratitude is a bit of an abstract concept. Like, you know what it is to feel grateful, but it's difficult to express that at that age. And third, because I always remember it being so difficult to figure out what to say. You know, I almost always resorted to the formulaic, dear Grandma, thank you for the fill in the blank. I look forward to fill in the blank, playing with it, reading it, wearing it. See you soon. Sincerely, Elizabeth, as I was known at that time. But that kind of message wasn't really that satisfying. I think maybe this was the beginning of my writing career, that feeling of being unsettled by the lack of panache in those original thank you notes. But you know, anyway, I think back about those exercises and how it was a kind of ritual for our family. And I kind of feel sheepish that it's not something that we're doing with our kids, because as with all rituals, I do think that it shaped me in some powerful ways, doing that again and again and again over the years. You know, in a strange way, though it felt like a certain kind of punishment at the time, it reinforced that I was loved and thought of. You know, beyond the momentary excitement of ripping open a package, writing notes was a discipline of returning to that act of generosity later in a more serious way, and being forced to see it really, and also to articulate its meaning. Some relative, maybe one I knew well, maybe not, recognized that it was my birthday, got something that I would enjoy, wrapped it up, and somehow got it into my hands, and darn it, I was going to write 3 sentences about it. I think I learned from that. And that's the thing about rituals, right? We do them over again over time, and they change us. They ground us, they shape us. I think about Mary and Joseph going to the temple on the 8th day after Jesus' birth. I mean, can you imagine anybody more deserving of not walking up the hill to Jerusalem to make this offering, right? There was the census and the travel and the spectacular journey and the no room at the inn and the birth and the manger and the oxen lowing and the angels singing and the shepherds coming and the magi. And imagine the Holy Family would have been totally overwhelmed by this point. This is on top of the base level of overwhelmed one tends to be when welcoming an infant. And it's amazing to me that after 8 days of this, they sort of shake off the shock and they say to each other, well, I guess we ought to go to church. Now, not church, of course, right? The temple, but the sentiment, I believe, is the same. Like we have to get back to the grounding regular things and give thanks to God for this child in a normal kind of way. In the face of this totally incomprehensible event, we must steady ourselves with a connection to our people, and to our history, and to our God. We must take this moment to pause and to do what our hearts have learned to do. And so they make their way to the temple, and they make their offering. And of course, they're surprised by Simeon and Anna, characters who seem to have walked directly out of the Old Testament, and who greet them with words of blessing. But I just can't get past the fact that that blessing comes in the context of observing a ritual together. If they had never gone to the temple, they would have never known. And I think about the rituals that shape our lives today, especially in this season, on this day, this threshold between years, when we find ourselves taking stock of what in our life is serving us and what is not, and when we think about all that has happened and the potential that the new year holds, it makes me want to think a little bit about ritual. How do our rituals serve us? How do they shape us? When I say ritual, I don't simply mean the sacrament of communion and saying, then he took this loaf and broke it, or the order of worship we use in church. I mean all the practices in our lives that form and inform who we are and how we are in the world, how we are with God. The things that we always do that help bind us to one another and move us forward in time. Now, in an opinion piece a few years ago by New York Times columnist David Brooks entitled, "There Should Be More Rituals!" Brooks laments the lack of rituals that shape our modern life. He thinks we need many more to help bring meaning and structure to our individual and communal experiences. In the article, Brooks cites the Reverend Jim Clark, Director of Spiritual Formation at St. John's Seminary in California, who notes that rituals have many functions. They give us comfort in knowing we are not alone by connecting us to all others who practice in the same way. They make our transcendent experiences concrete, and they help us embody things that are too deep for words to express. Above all that, they slow us down. They give us a pause to reflect on the meaning of the events that happen in our lives, which I know is what my note writing exercise was also meant to do. And it makes me wonder whether we might consider, as we move into this year, what rituals we might need in our own lives and our lives together to deepen our connection to each other and our sense of purpose. What small acts of welcome or dismissal or reflection or purification or connection do our lives need to feel more grounded and vibrant? And is it possible to talk about these things together? To be clear, I'm not talking about resolutions here. I think spiritual disciplines are a bit different. They're something we practice and reflect on and come back to. And they're not meant to just make us better. They're meant to make us whole, to connect us to our own sacredness and the belovedness of others on the earth. Maybe you know a ritual is as simple as a morning walk and prayer, or a commitment to throw a party to welcome new folks who move on to the block, or even a special sharing of memories when one moves from one place to another. When we reflect on what areas of our lives feel frayed or incomplete, I wonder if we could think about what ritual is due there to bind things together. Now, for my part, I can think of at least one thing that would be a good and quick start to an exploration of what ritual might enhance our life, and that is, you guessed it, no you didn't, but that's what's written in here, thank you notes. I want to make a commitment to kind of get back to that ritual in my own life in the new year. And I also wonder what it might mean for us to do something like that collectively. And I'm talking to our Rose City Park folks here. You know, this is one of the most generous, good-hearted, compassionate, and gracious churches I've ever been a part of. It is full to the brim of dedicated, principled, giving, and good-humored people who do a lot for this community. And I just wonder what would happen if we said something about that. You know, you all tend to be kind of fly under the radar a little bit, but I'm wondering if, like, maybe we could say, hey, look, there's amazing people doing helpful things. Thank you. Okay, nobody likes that idea, but I thought it was pretty good. I wonder what it would be like to become a community of effusive thanks. You know, what if that were part of our ritual together? What if that were part of our leadership and our discipline? You know, this church, as with most spiritual communities, is run not by my efforts, though I get to be the figurehead up here talking to you most weeks, and I tend to get a lot of the thanks for the things that goes on. But you know, really this place is supported by thousands of little tasks undertaken by dedicated folks who love this place, this community, and are intent upon its thriving. You know, as if by miracle, beautiful banners and other stuffs and stars appear here throughout the year to give our message of worship visual support. Have you thanked whoever makes that possible? If you can hear me right now, someone turned on a microphone this morning and tested the batteries and plugged some things into some other things and pressed some buttons. And presto, we were live. Have you said thank you for that? Someone in this church hands you a bulletin when you come in every week, and somebody else makes that bulletin and folds it and has it ready for your enjoyment. Have you said thank you for that? Someone in this church visits all our homebound members who are not able to be part of our physical gatherings and keeps those folks connected to the heart of our community. Have you ever said, I appreciate that? And maybe that's a little embarrassing if we really need to go around thanking each other. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. My grandmother said it was so, and she told me that God said that too. I think we should be doing that. Maybe thanking people, church people isn't your thing. Okay, then I'm going to give you some remedial assignments. Maybe you just write a bunch of 5-star reviews online. I think that would be a great spiritual discipline for the new year. Just every day, go online and write a 5-star review of somewhere near you. Maybe you're just bringing cookies to your local bank teller. You know, what would it feel like to do that? How would it shape us to acknowledge those small but important things? What would it make us inside? I ask this because I worry sometimes about this world and how caustic it has become. Do you worry about that? And sometimes I wonder if this age we live in, this internet age and the anonymity it offers, has convinced so many of us that our highest calling is to be critics. But really our highest calling, if the Westminster Catechism is to be believed, our highest calling is glorification and enjoyment. And while of course I believe we have a role to call out injustice and misdirection, I worry we have taken that too seriously and made it the whole project. We are all in our own way meant to be Simeons and Annas wandering around saying, wow, this is amazing, thank you God for this miracle in front of me right now. We are all called to be prophets of thanks and ambassadors of welcome and vanguards of mercy. I think we simply need some structures to channel those good intentions. Here's one last thought. A friend of mine, a therapist, has a discipline that she suggests to her clients, mostly couples, but I think it applies to communities too. See what you think about this. For every criticism that you offer the other person, you must first give 5 compliments. It's called the 5-to-1 rule. That sounds ludicrous and very time-consuming, right? Sometimes you just want to say, you forgot to start the dishwasher. Someone says, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm not going to take your common advice, right? But no, first 5 compliments. I really appreciate all you do around here. I really love that you filled the dishwasher. That was great. I really appreciate that they're, right, whatever, 5 compliments. It's an exercise in prioritizing connection, affirmation, and gratitude, even in the face of difficulty and discord. And I really do see that in an increasing way as being a gospel habit. To see in others the miracle that they are and to say something about it. Just as God saw something in us worthy of being with, worthy of speaking a word about that word that became Jesus. And of course, that's what this whole season is about, the season of Christmas. When we remember and celebrate the way that God came to be with us, the way that God was born among us, and we celebrate all the people that received that blessing into their hands and passed word of it along to us. And we sing hymns about them, we tell their stories, and we give thanks and hope that in doing so, we become as they were, grateful people who give prophetic testimony to the wonderful gifts happening all around them. So I offer you that invitation in this Christmas season to add to your reflections about what the new year might mean for you and certainly for all of us. And I give that invitation and ask the blessing of the God who created, redeemed, and sustained us always. Amen. As